Hello everybody, my name is Swaggy, and today we're back with another question time. Full disclosure, I recorded this a couple days in advance, and the day after I did my recording, this post got a lot more responses, so I'm re-recording it again to include more stuff here, because I think there's a lot of good things that I missed beforehand. But today, I want to talk about fumbles. Not necessarily things that are outright bad or outright good in Vanguard, but a lot of the good ideas that end up getting messed up in execution. So, today I asked all of you, what were some of Vanguard's biggest fumbles or missed opportunities? And for me, it is this anime episode. For those unfamiliar, this is the episode where Megumi joins the Uniformers and plays Magnolia Masks against Danji. The episode is probably one of the weakest for both Danji and Megumi. Danji has been kind of avoiding Megumi because he got kissed by a 16-year-old and is 23, and all of Blackout acts like it's his fault, and Megumi joining the Uniformers for like one episode isn't very well developed. In general, the fight's also kind of sloppy too. I understand the significance of the 6 damage heal, but it almost feels like Megumi doesn't have to lose this fight, because Megumi says herself she's not fully all in on the Uniformers' ideology, so she could have reasonably won and said, yeah, but I just wanted to prove that I am strong now. I don't know, the whole episode is such a mess of characterization for both the characters involved, and I just feel like it could have been done so much better because I love Magnolia Masks and I love Bruce. Okay, let's see what you guys came up with. Zarin Zephyr says that the biggest fumble will always be end of servicing Vanguard Zero. Game could have been alive and well, and that's not them coping, I just missed the game. It was like my life for 3 years, and seeing it let go so easily is wild. So I played like a little bit of Vanguard Zero when it first came out, but never got too into it because I just couldn't get into like the old school kind of Vanguard gameplay. But I know that internationally, a lot of people did like Vanguard Zero. It was a lot of people's main way to interact with the IP, especially if you don't come from a Southeast Asian region where Vanguard is mostly popular. So this is kind of the main way that people interacted with the game, and it was a fine way to play it from what I understand. The game had a lot of love to it. There were alternate skins for the characters, a lot of key art like specific seasonal art for stuff like Kai and Aichi was there. A lot of the cards got retooled so that they fit Zero's pace, and I think that was super cool. And I don't ever remember hearing a factual reason as to why they shut down Vanguard Zero. To me, it could have come out and still continued on with Overdress and it would have been fine. Or they could have at least made a new mobile game for Vanguard. It's surprising that we don't have one of those. But yeah, honestly, it is a big fumble to have a money-making gacha game for your big headliner card game and then not capitalize on it fully when you move into the new era of Vanguard. It's even worse that Divine Z didn't get one of these. Like, why not? Every time I see somebody play a Shadowverse in public or Hearthstone or God forbid Marvel Snap, I just wish that Vanguard had Zero again, just so people could interact with the game more. Ratfucker says, a bit late to this, but Youthberk could have been Keter's Virina, where every form has a unique purpose. The dream of Revel forms to different forms to fit every situation, but in the end, every Revel form is just better than the one before, or you only go into the old forms if you brick. I talk about this in a reply, but Youthberk's issue is that they kind of wanted to treat the Revel forms, I feel, like the stride mechanic, where you can change your Vanguard at will to fit the situation. But as it turns out, it's a lot harder to have the toolbox way stride worked when you have to draw into all the pieces, and there are some better ones. It is so depressing that Zest, Tempest, and Gust just aren't playable in the slightest. You could cope a little bit and maybe play like a Gust in the current rebuild Youthberks, but you really shouldn't. Not only that, I feel it's a bit of a fumble that Full Blast requires you to put all 3 into your soul and kind of overshadows them and is meant to overshadow them. Like, that just feels like it defeats the point of all the Revel forms, right? And they did it again with Exist. Exist is just kind of your all-in-one yet again. And it's really painful to watch such an interesting concept just become, well, I'll just play the best form and I'll play like one other Revel form if I'm cheeky. It's just not great. It's one of the saddest things for Youthberk, especially when I think outside of that his design is really cool. I just wish he leaned more into the form changing mechanic. Okay, let's talk about Dear Days. If you are unfamiliar, Dear Days is Vanguard's premier way to play online. You may be thinking, oh, like Shadowverse or Hearthstone? No, not like that at all. You may be thinking that it is a format and client similar to Master Duel for Yu-Gi-Oh, where the real life game exists, but you play on this online client a couple sets behind for free, and it gets people into the paper card game. Not the case at all, surprisingly. Dear Days is not only not free to play, it is $60 MSRP. I believe that's in USD. I paid a lot more for it when I got Dear Days 2, in my local currency, of course. And not only is it a couple sets behind, it's just not very good of a game. It's more of like a story game where you have an online client on the side, but $60 to play Vanguard. And you might be thinking, oh, but when new sets come in, you just keep buying the packs? No, actually, you have to buy DLC to get the new cards. That's insane, right? Digimon is getting an online client that's free to play, Alestrals has one, and we are stuck on Dear Days. And Bushiroad really wants Dear Days 2 to do well. In Japan, I believe there are Dear Days tournaments where you play in the Dear Days format on Dear Days machines, and there's like a Dear Days prize generator I think you can get. I'll put a picture up if I can find it. But it's so insane to me that we are forced to play Vanguard Dear Days as a paid product that doesn't even work well half the time. Do you know how often I disconnect from matches near the end, like when I tried playing it? And there were a lot of bugs in Dear Days 2 for the longest time. It's such a fumble because the idea of an online simulator for one of the biggest trading card games in Japan should be a smash hit, but for some reason they don't want to go through with it. It boggles my mind. Another anime one, Now Inabe. There was genuine potential in her back in season 1. Finally, a main female lead slash heroine that is actively involved in the story. Now, she is stripped of her identity as she is turned into merely an accessory to the main protagonist. We agree. We agree. So Nao's case is pretty interesting because she starts off as Akina's mentor and is a good player throughout, and she shows that she has a level of skill and game knowledge that is above Akina at certain points. If you remember in the fight against Senka she has in Divine Z Season 2, she has a pretty cool moment where she divine skills to add more cards to her hand so she can survive. Those are really cool moments, and Nao is kind of fleshed out to be this pro player, or at least someone who wants to go pro and has a goal for it. Now in the deluxe arc of Divine Z, it's a little more iffy. For some reason they are really capitalizing on like this Akina Nao romance that is kind of shoehorned in. She gets out of the tournament, which is kind of sad. Like, I feel like she shouldn't get out of the tournament. I don't know who I would take out. Maybe Mirai? Maybe Megumi? But I feel like she could have been in the finals, no? Now she's kind of getting hard sidelined in the current season. And I mean, it's not a finished season, so we could go anywhere. But it is a little sad. And yeah, she kind of becomes damsel in distress for Akina, who has also been losing a lot of his characterization to become kind of a milquetoast, like, bland character, more of a self-insert. I don't know, it feels like I would rather watch anyone else on screen. And also, you're trying to make me believe this guy is straight? Come on. The EN player just got set 9. Leah says Kazuma lost the one fight he worked up his whole life for and then had to have Chrono save him in GZ through a plot twist that existed only for shock value, basically. No. It existed to sell Dragobis Luard. I don't know how I would have written it differently, but I really wish Kazuma beat his brother. That's kind of the whole point of the brother arc. In fact, none of the brothers beat one another. Kazuma doesn't beat Kazumi, and Kazumi doesn't beat Kazuma when he's Geese. I always thought kind of a tangent on this point that him being Geese is cool, but I was really hoping it was gonna be like Chrono and then the rest of the gang has to stop him. This is kind of a bad comparison, but a la Yuya from Arc 5 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe? A little better executed at least. Just such a strange thing that Vanguard does where they give the main antagonist a connection to another character who isn't the protagonist. And then this makes this really awkward scenario where you can't have a side character defeat the main villain, but then the main villain losing to the main protagonist doesn't amount to much, or isn't very impactful in the end. Lucky Amaja says, I think they should bring Buddy Fight back. I got good news for you. Dovebat says, the switch to shorter seasons has done nothing but restrain the series. Hardly any room to breathe, and every season has become a tournament arc. It's boring. Kind of agree. One of the best parts of the old Vanguard animes, if you go back and watch them, is the fact that there are a lot of these slice of life moments that let you flesh out the characters. I think a lot of people are quite attached to the G series characters because you spend a lot of time with Team Tri-3 like on the side. And you do spend that kind of time with Q4. I mean, if Kaizen moping off somewhere and half the time the team is quitting in the original season. But these moments are super important to developing your characters, so they don't just exist in the time they card fight. I know a lot of people didn't like Overdress Season 1 because it was all slice of life, but if you think about Overdress Season 1 and Overdress Season 2, Overdress Season 2 works so well because a lot of the characterization in Season 1 carries over here. The Danji plotlines, Toya's kind of a redemption fight versus Danji, a lot of it has to work only through the slice of life of Season 1. And while I understand that a lot of people are here to watch the trading cards fight or to see what the new card is that week, it does feel like we've lost a bit of these slice of life character moments that did make Vanguard quite special to me when I was watching it. Back half of Legion made for sure. Naoki shouldn't have been one of the final 4. It should have been Kamui or Misaki, and Misaki and Korin were built up to fight each other for nothing? Legion Mate is weird. Legion Mate has some of the strangest fumbles in the original series. It's definitely the weakest of the original 4, right? Misaki shouldn't lose all those games. Why is Naoki the only one who makes it to the final standoff with Aichi? If anything, shouldn't Q4 all be there at the very least? It's so weird that they're not. Legion Mate's weird, guys. Don't watch Legion Mate. I'm gonna put Several Rib and Zephyr on the screen here, but they're both talking about Vanguard Online, basically, and how we can't have an online simulator. I talked about this briefly in the part where I just talked about Vanguard Zero, but Vanguard Online pisses me off that it didn't come to fruition. It's just the most sensible thing for a card game now more than ever. Basically, every paper card game has a digital client where you play the real game so that you can kind of push people to buy your paper product. Why Vanguard doesn't have one, I have no idea. I played a bit of the Vanguard Online beta when it came out. It was fine, it worked. I'm just shocked that they never went through with it. It also bothers me a lot as someone who likes making video content that I can't easily make stuff like playing a game on ladder or playing some games online with strangers at a moment's notice because there is no easy online client to do it on. If there was a sleek client that just functioned and let me play Vanguard, I think that would also do great for the game's impact in a content creation sphere. I think a lot of Vanguard games right now online, if they're not played in real life, they have to be played using CFA or VangPro. And those programs, while very functional and absolute monoliths for the community, just aren't very nice to look at. And I think a lot of people get turned off by the system, and when they try to play it, they get turned off by how weird and funky it is to download and then get started. So it's just outrageous that we don't have one, especially in 2025. Those are the quotes. Let's look at the replies. Duet says, Kidani saying he refuses to allow Cardfight Vanguard in stores like Walmart or Target for you Americans, so you can experience the character's perspective of buying it from a card shop, which leads to barely anybody knowing about CFV and no way of players outside of shops to see the game without being told. I did not know that this was a thing, at least internationally, because in Southeast Asia, or at least in Singapore, there are a ton of stores that specialize in like games and stuff that just have it. I think for a while, Toys R Us had Vanguard packs too, at least in the G era. You could buy like English packs at least. So it's shocking to me that you're just not allowed to get these from your big box retailers. Isn't this where you kind of get word of mouth advertising at the very least? Although anybody who has followed Kidani ever should know that maybe he's not the greatest at business based on his role models. Shinobi Yuki says that the nation system in D is such a huge miss. It was supposed to make it so every clan could get support, so you never had players who didn't buy a set because their clan didn't get supported. However, Bright Lines are just mini clans, so it's even worse than it was with 24 clans. I think this is correct, but I don't think it is worse than the clan system we had before. I think the nation system could have been a lot better. I agree that a lot of the cards we have now are basically archetype lock cards. They don't work with every deck. The generics, when they come out, are really high rarities, and we don't have a very aggressive reprint policy, so you end up with stuff like $60 Albinas. But, I'm gonna push back on Bright Lines are just mini clans, so it's even worse than it was with 24 clans. If you have ever played Cardfight Vanguard before the nation system, you should know that at the very least, every clan also had archetypes. So if you had the right archetype that was in the anime, you got the support still. And if you didn't get support. It has kind of always been how it is, even with the idea of a clan system. It's just impossible to make cards that work with every single card and can be put into every single deck. Imagine being someone who likes Jewel Knights at the end of G-Era and you have to watch Brave and Blasters get all the cards and you get nothing. I used to play Claret Sword Dragon and was really excited when we were getting a new season of G and Kazuma showed up and Luard came and I got one set of Claret Sword cards and then never again. I think this issue has always existed in Vanguard, and I'm not sure if this is like a deliberate choice or if it's just kind of accidentally oopsie poopsie, we made it so that everyone never gets cards at a frequent pace unless you are the anime character at the time. And I think the nation system would have been a great time for them to move away from it, but it is a bit of more of the same. Honestly, I do think the problem is not as bad as it used to be. I want to say that, but it definitely is an issue if you bought into Coty Blaze and every set is a Vanguard gets double rare. That's probably upsetting. It is upsetting. I play Coty Blaze. What am I talking about? It is upsetting. Here on YouTube, Shun Kurosaki 1664, you're in the wrong anime series. For me, one of the biggest fumbles, and they are kinda fixing this now, is not showing the units fight each other. In the early series of Vanguard, they would show the units of card fighters interact with them, and in Overdress, they pretty much removed that part. I think they're going for more grounded storylines where the characters don't really talk with the units. You can kind of see that more in the Skyride manga if you like that aspect of Vanguard, but I do kind of miss it. I was a big fan of the V anime. Whenever they attacked or guarded, all the units were like, yes, my Vanguard. That just felt nice, like all the units were kind of together and talking to the player at hand. And of course, if you want to do the fantasy card game save the world plotline, you kind of have to have your units talk to your players. And on a kind of side tangent, I do think that a lot of the units in the original series, like G and the original ones, had a lot of personality. If you go back and watch the Kanzaki Kazuma fight, when Kanzaki attacks and Kazuma guards, his units are like in pain as Claret's sword attacks, and it's such a nice touch to show how strong Kanzaki is. I think animating the units gives a lot. And they do it sometimes here and there, but I think they are just trying to save a bit on the budget and not have every anime have a lot of action in the terms of the fights. Gonna talk about RR0927 here. Recently, Xing Premium is 100% the biggest issue. I have no idea why they're Xing Premium. It is one of the strangest decisions I can think of. It's a legacy format. The people who play the legacy format like the legacy format, and I understand that they're not really buying new product, but surely it is better to have some people who are involved in your game at some capacity who could theoretically buy a product at some point if you push it, than to kill the game off and have people not play your product and not buy into it. The premium player base, at least on the EN side, is very dedicated to the game, and I think that they will crawl over broken glass if it means they can play a premium match that doesn't involve two people having fanware on the board. Premium players will play at the back of a jolly if it means they get some amount of prizing and get to play the fun game that they like. It's strange because they released the premium deck sets like last year with Raging Form, the Neo Nectar one, and the Royal Paladin one, and I thought that was gonna be them re-pushing premium as a format, and it just never happened. I have no clue why, because it seems to me to make a lot of sense to have your premium product be really accessible and then slowly make more premium products so that people who bought the Raging Form sets and the Musketeer sets and stuff like that, they have something to do with them. Now I just see all these deck sets rot on store shelves, or I've harvested my Raging Form deck set for the Elementaria I'd had. It's just kind of sad. And I do think that it is important that every card game has a way for legacy players to enjoy the game, whether it be using the old cards or at the very least being able to play them in a different format altogether. So it's just weird that they fumbled this one. It feels like it shouldn't cost that much, like in the long term. Like, don't run the Lyrical Cup, put a premium tournament instead. I don't know. Seems easy to me. Is everyone clamoring to play Lyrical Cup? Is that a format everybody really likes relative to the kind of stranglehold premium has on the culture of Vanguard? I guess the Bushiroad it is, because it makes people buy the Kairi cards. So, what have we learned from this? A player base that complains isn't necessarily a negative thing. It just means we have a lot of attachment to the IP, and we want to see it grow and do well. But you guys really hate Bushiroad. And hey, make some room for me. And we all don't know why Master Duel doesn't have a Vanguard equivalent. Alright, that's all from me. Next time, I'm going to be recording these after I wait a couple days, because I'm not doing this twice again. This was it was shocking to wake up and see so many responses after I had filmed the video originally. Alright, that's all. Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, yeah.